Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 770 for the 9th of July 2023. That's a lot of numbers. Richard Saunders coming to you from another cool, crisp, calm, clear, other words with the C sounds, cool, crisp, calm, clear day here in Sydney, Australia. Coming up on this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone podcast, Years ago, we had a lot of fun testing something called the Premium Wine Card. This is a device about the same size as a credit card, made out of probably aluminium or something like that, with little holes drilled in it in the shape of a wine glass. Well, the claim was that if you rub this device on your glass of wine, it would change your mediocre wine into premium wine. Of course, it was a nonsense. Now, this card was being sold in the day, which was the mid-part of last decade, for around $65, give or take. Although they had a pack, it says here in an archived version of the website, because the website no longer exists, Premium Wine Card Value Pack. You can get two for $115, because this was such a long time ago. Later on in today's episode, I might say it goes up to $120, but I guess I was thinking about the value pack. Anyway, a lot of money for a card that ultimately did nothing at all. So we begin today's episode with my report made in the pages of the Skeptic Magazine about 3 years ago into our investigations and testing of the Premium Wine Card based on frequencies. Following that, it's Maynard's spooky action. Maynard heads back to Sydney Skeptics in the pub, where we test once again with pub goers the Premium Wine Card. Will it improve the taste of their wine, their beer, their water, or whatever they happen to have? Great to be back at Skeptics in the pub with Maynard, and we had a packed Skeptics in the pub just in the last few days. The speaker was author Annie McCubbin, but it was virtually standing room only. A big turnout for Sydney Skeptics in the pub. Then to round off the Skeptic Zone, we go back to the Trove archives, and while I was doing a sort of a general search on paranormal and mysteries and that sort of thing, I came across yet another interesting story relating to psychics and Jack the Ripper. And I think I mentioned this some years ago when we looked into Jack the Ripper, that people get sucked down a huge web of conspiracies and rabbit holes and ideas and all sorts of interesting things when they're looking into Jack the Ripper. As a bonus on this week's episode, I play the new song from Conspiracy of One, Nate Eggins, and here's a new song called The Song They Don't Want You to Hear. I wonder if he's going to play that at the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See. And this is a new song with input from George Hrab from the Geologic podcast. A big shout out to those people about to embark on long international travel right across the globe. Australia is a long way from everywhere, as I've discovered. It really is. That's a long time to be sitting on a plane. My advice, get as much sleep as you can on the flight. It does make it go quicker. But now it's time for me to run downstairs. I tell you what, I'll grab the Premium Wine Card on the way. It's in one of my drawers here where I keep skeptical mementos. And I will have a nice cup of soup. I wonder if it'll work on soup. I'll cook up some bread, in other words, toast it, cut it into little strips, dip it into the soup. And while I do all that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. A tasteless experience. Richard Saunders, with the help of Ian Bryce and Steve Roberts, tests the premium wine card and shows that marketing and pseudoscience can leave a bad taste in the mouth. And this is from the Skeptic Magazine, the journal from Australian Skeptics, Volume 40, Number 2, with naturally a link to this issue, which you can download for free in this week's show notes. Sometime in the year 2014, the premium wine card, marketed by a Brisbane company, Millennium International Group, came to my notice. It may have been by someone contacting me who had seen it online, or maybe it was via a producer at Today Tonight on the 7 network. I honestly can't remember. Nevertheless, my first reaction upon seeing it in action via an instructional video, which at the time of writing is still embedded on the product's website, was to burst out laughing. And an update, that video and indeed the website no longer appear online. We read on. This is still the reaction I get from the audience at public talks when I talk about the product. So, what is the premium wine card and how does it claim to work? Briefly, the card is the same size as a credit card, made from a light metal with small holes punched through on the right side. These holes, about 100 of them, are in the stylized shape of a wine glass. The idea is that you press the card against a wine glass as you pour in, say, a cheap or mediocre wine. The embedded frequencies in the card go to work and improve the taste of the wine, supposedly turning it into a more expensive and better tasting wine. The wine card can be yours for only $65. You may now burst out laughing. But it gets better. Has the wine already been poured? Fear not, as you can rub the wine card on the glass for 15 seconds, wait 30 seconds. Keep that in mind as I'll return to it later. And what do you know? The taste of premium wine is yours. You may now keep laughing. A review of the wine card published in The Australian newspaper in July 2014 concluded with the reporter writing, quote, "The premium wine card failed to pass the taste test, which is why I've returned it to the manufacturer and got my money back," end quote. In early 2015, Choice magazine ran some tests on the card and reported it did not appear to work as claimed. Understandably, they did not take the card too seriously. However, Choice was happy to pass their card on to Australian Skeptics for our own investigations. About the same time, I was contacted by a producer at Today Tonight, who was interested in doing a story on the wine card and had already filmed a session with Peter Scudmore-Smith, who bills himself as a, quote, "master of wine," end quote. Scudmore-Smith was filmed giving a demonstration of the card. However, the story never did make it to air. Many stories never make it to air for one reason or another. What is fortunate for us is that someone else filmed the session, showing Scudmore-Smith and the TV crew. This video ended up on the official YouTube channel of the Premium Wine Card. That channel has since been deleted. But before that video and others from the company disappeared, they were captured and archived by your correspondent. What they show is, in my opinion, damning. Let's start with the video of Scudmore-Smith giving a demonstration to the TV crew. He pours 2 glasses of wine from the same bottle, treats one with the wine card, and declares it tastes better than the wine in the other glass. But in the process of doing this demonstration, he ignores the 3 instructions given by the company on using the wine card. Point: The 2 glasses he uses are only centimetres apart and not the 1 metre specified. Point. He rubs the wine card on the glass for 4 seconds and not the 15 seconds specified. In fact, he hardly rubs it at all and lets the wine swirl around the glass. Point. He can tell the wine card has an effect almost immediately without waiting the 30 seconds specified. One wonders why the company bothered issuing instructions at all. Maybe it is to give the impression of the wine card actually doing something if you follow the directions. But it reminds me of a fake medical practitioner wearing a white lab coat. It is worth noting that someone posting on the Facebook page of the Premium Wine Card in December 2014 claims Channel 7 did conduct a test of the wine card with 10 members of a Brisbane Wine Appreciation Club. The card passed with flying colours. Quote, 9 out of 10 members preferred the white wine treated with the Premium Wine Card. 7 out of 8 preferred the red wine treated with the Premium Wine Card. End quote. We are unable to verify how these tests were conducted, and, as we'll see, they don't match the results of testing by Australian Skeptics or Choice. The posting also states that the company is not interested in further testing. Another video posted and since deleted is possibly the most telling of all. Experiences from the high tea party. A gorgeous excuse to catch up with the girls. It shows representatives of the Premium Wine Card in an exhibition centre in their booth to demonstrate and sell the card. As various ladies attending the event pass by, they are invited to test the wine card for themselves by first rubbing the card against a small plastic glass of wine, tasting it, then tasting from another glass of untreated wine that is, quote, straight from the bottle, end quote. While their facial expressions upon tasting the first glass are ones of, that wine tastes okay, their expressions upon tasting the wine straight from the bottle is dramatically and starkly different. What we see is the involuntary human reaction to tasting something bitter or sour or off. The women contort their faces as their natural reactions kick in. These, I submit, are not the reactions one would expect if they were tasting wine that was all right, but not yet treated. These are the reactions from tasting something bad. Never, in all our testing of the wine card, have we seen anything even remotely like these strong reactions, and similar reactions were not reported by Choice. Was there something else in the glass to make the wine taste bad? We cannot say, but challenge Millennium International Group to repeat this demonstration with proper oversight. Clinical neurologist and assistant professor at Yale University School of Medicine, Dr. Steve Novella, New England Skeptical Society and producer of the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe podcast, viewed the video and thinks the women seem to have a genuine disgust reaction to the wine in the second glass, but would not entirely discount them being actors. He notes that this is based purely on the video alone. Testing times. For the March 2015 Sydney Skeptics in the Pub, Australian Skeptics Challenge Coordinator Ian Bryce and I devised an informal test of the wine card. This involved the card itself, a dummy card of the same size and weight, a coin to toss to add a random aspect to the tests, and lots of willing volunteers. The dummy card was made by Ian Bryce, the Skeptics Challenge Coordinator. It was the same size and mass as the wine card. Both cards were concealed in paper and labelled X and Y. Each subject saw us tap 2 glasses with them and then was asked to select the better wine. It was unknown to the people tasting the wine, or water in some cases, whether the real wine card or the dummy was in use. Bryce reports that After 20 trials, it was revealed that 7 people favoured the wine treated with the real wine card, 6 thought the wine treated with the dummy wine card was better, and 7 could not tell the difference. It can now be said that the wine card literally failed the pub test. You can hear the audio report on the event on the Skeptic Zone podcast. Steve Roberts, a member of the Victorian Skeptics, a statistician, and someone who likes a drop or two, picks up the story 5 years later with a report on further tests carried out at SkeptiCamp held in February this year, and that was 2020, at Aireys Inlet, Victoria. When the card hove within our ken, Richard Saunders, Michelle Bickersma, and myself, it did indeed energise us by motivating us to set up a double-blind test at SkeptiCamp. We got hold of about 50 wine glasses and bought some red wine. On the day, in the privacy of the kitchen, the hapless and lonely wine pourer, me, Steve Roberts, washed and dried all the glasses, separated them into 2 sets, socially distanced 2 meters apart, poured the wine while applying the wine card to one set, and then brought both sets out separately into the lecture room when there was nobody around, placing them on 2 tables A and B, and avoiding being in the area after that. The recorder, Richard, then turned up, grabbed some passing skeptics, persuaded them to try one of each wine, and tell him if wine A or wine B was nicer, or were they the same. We made 4 different runs of the test. The wine samples were very small, 15 to 25 millilitres, but nevertheless we provided a useful bucket for dumping unwanted wine into. It was good fun to be the wine pourer. You operate in isolation and you get all the tips that were tipped into the useful bucket. Punters were told that all the wine on table A or on table B, or both, or neither, might or might not have been secretly charged by the wine card. The null hypothesis being that when the card was used, no difference would be noted. Thus it would have been a waste of time to change neither or both sets. I changed only one set. I did, however, surreptitiously change to another wine for the 3rd run, and I used water for the 4th run, because the wine card claims also to improve that. The results are shown in Table 1, which is on the page. There's no need for statistics. These figures easily show that the use of the wine card made no significant difference overall, except on run number 1. It markedly made the wine worse. Now, the cost of the $15 Shiraz Cabernet was actually $15 for 6 bottles, complete with a natty little box to put them in and carry them out of the Aldi store where we found them. Through earnest research the night before, applying great zeal, we found that this $2.50 wine could be drunk, and it was red, and it contained alcohol. But we were disappointed to note that it was relatively devoid of the character, bouquet, hue, complexity, mouthfeel, finish, aftertaste, and adjectives the experienced connoisseur traditionally associates with this particular beverage. And the label on the bottles had no waffly text. Spilt wine did not attack the bench top, but it cleaned the sink beautifully. How on earth could this $2.50 stuff be made any worse than it already was? But that's what the wine card did. The wine card's small holes do have a particular useful function. You could bend up the edges of the wine card and strain the wine through it. But for $65, it'd be cheaper to buy a sieve. It was amusing to see the punters, when sampling the awful $2.50 wine, adopting the stern facial expressions of a discerning wine connoisseur, as if about to snort the best Grange Hermitage. And nobody remarked on how cheap the wine tasted. My guilty conscience led me to provide a decent, well-known Coonawarra Shiraz for the third run, but nobody commented that the wine suddenly tasted better than before, which it really did. Honestly, I could have saved my money. Next time, you all get the cheap wine every time, okay? Dr. Brad Mackay, MD, Australian Skeptics committee member and connoisseur, says, quote, "Taste is extremely subjective, especially with wine. I remember Steve Novella mentioned a study on the SGU a few years ago about wine tasting, where white wine was dyed red and then described to professional sommeliers in terms normally used for red wine, and no one identified the wine was actually white wine with red food colouring. Telling someone that wine will taste good or bad will heavily influence their opinion. Their outward expressions may also become exaggerated when cameras are in operation. From the High Tea Party video, there is no way to tell if the wine from the good or bad cups came from the same bottle, or if the liquid had been subsequently adulterated. There is no scientific plausibility for the premium wine card to change the taste of the wine. However, if I'm being extremely generous, there could be a beneficial effect due to the swirling motion of the cup. In the video, staff members running the stand move the plastic cup full of wine and keep the card stationary, whereas it would be more logical to move the card and keep the wine glass still in order to minimize the chance of spillage. Physically moving the cup could potentially aerate the wine, enhancing its bouquet and contribute to a well-rounded taste. But this effect could also be achieved by swirling the cup in a similar motion, without the need for a wine card. And why would you serve wine in a plastic tumbler when everyone knows wine tastes better from a glass? The science. Ian Bryce points out that the wine card is promoted as using, quote, 21st century microengineering, end quote. The website claims that, quote, the brief our research team was to, produce a safe, small, non-electrical device that is able to enhance normal consumption-size samples of beverages. The process, called sonication, is more engineering than science in that it involves the application of sound energy created at precise frequencies, which are embedded in the holes in the card, end quote. The evidence provided is a video of an attractive socialite sipping wine from one glass and screwing up her face at the unpleasant taste. She then rubs the card against the glass, has another sip, and beams, that's much better. And I will break in here now to say, and here is the audio from that very video.
Welcome to the Premium Wine Card. Premium Wine Card is the latest technology which allows you to change the taste of ordinary wine into premium wine in just a few seconds. Today I'm going to show you a simple test so you can enjoy better tasting wine yourself. This glass will have the wine poured straight from the bottle, and this glass will have the wine treated with the Premium Wine Card. This is the wine poured straight from the bottle. When I pour the next glass, I'm going to hold the Premium Wine Card against the glass to treat the wine as it's poured. If the wine has already been poured, like in a restaurant, then gently hold the card's wine glass symbol against the glass and move it up and down for about 15 seconds to improve the wine. When you smell the wine, it may now have a full fruit flavour. If there is a strong smell coming from the wine, then gently blow into the glass to remove it. Taste the treated wine first. Now taste the glass of ordinary wine that was poured straight from the bottle. You'll immediately notice that the wine treated with the Premium Wine Card tastes so much better. Cheers! Improving the taste of your wine is that simple. Get your Premium Wine Card today. For more information, visit premiumwinecard.com.
In other words, as far as scientific evidence is concerned, there is none. Really. no science at all. Embedded frequencies is a nonsense term. You might as well say, the colour of the number 3 is red. As Dr. Harriet Hall puts it, quote, "You can't embed a frequency. You might be able to embed something that would produce vibrations or electromagnetic waves with a frequency, but it would require a power source. If a product contained a frequency generator, so what?" End quote. We very much doubt that there is a generator embedded in the wine card. And what if there was? How on earth would frequencies change the taste of wine, or water, or coffee, or tea, as claimed, for the better? As the company themselves put it on a reply to a query about the science, quote, "Using premium wine card is simple, but the technology behind it is complex and a closely guarded secret," end quote. I bet it is. Conclusion. There can be no doubt that the premium wine card does not and cannot work as claimed. There is no science backing up the claims. It failed multiple testing. The inventor has yet to front up for a Nobel Prize in physics. Whoever wrote up the product information either knows nothing about physics or just made stuff up. Video evidence shows instructions given by the company are meaningless and also suggests possible tainted tests, and the company seems disinterested in any more tests. It is a joke and fails on every level apart from being a marketable product. And that last point leads me to what is maybe the biggest failure of all in this story. That is, the failure of the relevant authority to take action against this product. That something can be marketed and sold using the claim of embedded frequencies should be an automatic red flag. After all, the Power Balance wristband made similar claims in 2009 before action was taken against it by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. You may stop laughing now, as the Millennium International Group has taken all your laughs to the bank. A positive twist? For this skeptic at least, the premium wine card has given me a good example to use in my public talks and a good excuse to drink more than a few glasses of wine with some good skeptical company. About the authors. Richard Saunders is Chief Investigator for Australian Skeptics and producer and host of the Skeptic Zone podcast. Ian Bryce is Challenge Coordinator for Australian Skeptics. Steve Roberts is a mathematician, cryptography expert, and ownophile. And that was a tasteless experience. Richard Saunders, with help from Ian Bryce and Steve Roberts, tests the premium wine card and shows that marketing and pseudoscience can leave a bad taste in the mouth. And that was reported in the Skeptic Magazine, the journal from Australian Skeptics, Volume 40, Number 2, from 2020. And again, that whole issue can be yours for free. I will include a link in this week's show notes. And incidentally, right here in front of me, I have the packaging. Take that apart. Of the premium wine card itself. Open this up, and here it is. Maybe if I rub it on the microphone, the podcast will sound better. Who knows? There you go. And every now and then, I bring it out, and it's used in public talks and demonstrations. And I guess now, since the company seems to have vanished, or at least the arm selling the premium wine card, the website, the videos, I guess it's now just another relic of skeptical history.
Hey everyone, this is Brian Dunning from the Skeptoid podcast. I have just completed my new feature documentary film about the real science behind the UFO phenomenon, tantalizingly entitled The UFO Movie They Don't Want You to See. Well, here's your chance to spite them and to see it anyway. If you're going to be at SkeptiCalCon 2023 in Las Vegas this October, we're having a free screening. All you need to do is RSVP, and you can do that at skeptoid.com/events. The UFO movie at SciCon 2023, skeptoid.com/events.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Ooh, bubble, trouble, toil and trouble and hushing and rushing, because the skeptics are flushing, as they always are, here at the Occidental Hotel for one of the very rare skeptics in the pub. And Richard, it's been a while since I've been here. In fact, walking through the pub, there was people in the bar, and I found that quite affronting.
People are rolling up as we sit here at Maynard. Look at this, people streaming through.
Well, remember how people roll up early for stuff? Remember the first people to dance, if you're anywhere? Bit like that.
It's a bit like that. We'll be dancing with the devil tonight.
The first people to dance are the ones you should watch out after they've had their third drink. Watch out.
Well, people are just running up for their first drink at the moment. Tonight, Maynard, we're going to be doing something we did some years ago, but I thought it'd be a lot of fun because earlier in the show we had the story about the premium wine card. I've brought it along here with me tonight. In fact, let me get it out of the little box. Here it is. The premium wine card.
Now, this is the one that supposedly, by being in the presence of a cheaper wine, can make it taste like a more expensive wine.
Yeah.
And is there anything? What is the woo about this? Is there something ingrained in it? What is it?
Well, basically speaking, the claim is it's the card itself, which is about the same size as a credit card, is embedded with frequencies that when you rub the card on a wine glass, it will transfer the frequencies into the wine and make the wine or the whiskey or the water or the tea or the coffee taste better.
Right, so it works along a similar principle to my premium underpants. So I can understand that.
I understand this is true, but the thing, of course, is with this you've got all these little perforations in the shape of a wine glass. You see that?
And how much was it originally worth?
I seem to remember it was in the vicinity of $60 or $120. It's been a long time now, so I can't quite remember, but it was not cheap.
So what wines have you tried it on to improve their flavour?
Oh, just about everything. As listeners heard in the report, Steve Roberts, Michelle Bickersmar and I tried it on a very, very, very cheap wine from Aldi, which was $2.50 a bottle.
I reckon you need to expand this more. You should try some Zuma on it, the American clear beer, if you can still get it. Maybe some Miller, some of the American-made Heineken, some of that stuff. It couldn't hurt.
It could not hurt, but that's what we do. As soon as more people roll up and we get the evening going, we'll be going around and asking people whether they think it works and whether it makes their drinks taste better.
I think there's going to be a very interesting evening ahead. Okay, Richard, but I'll just hang out in the background. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Richard's doing his meeting and greeting around the room right now, going, hello, would you like to try my premium wine card? He's having some success, but frankly, if Richard Saunders came up to you and said that, what would your answer be? A lovely beer. Right, well, now, I'm not quite sure how to use it, so I might not use it correctly.
You got the instructions? Does it come with
Well, I saw Richard use it earlier, so look, I'm just here, and I'm going to try and use the wine card. I might not use it properly because Richard used it earlier there. And who have we got here?
My name's Montag.
And what are you reading there?
I'm reading the instructions. It says, simply touch the card against your wine glass to unlock a smoother, more flavourful wine. And we're going to try it on some beer.
Well, that's interesting. So it might make now already it's a nice beer. I like Asahi beer. A lot of people don't like it. I do like it. I think it's better than most American beers. Don't like most American beers. There's something missing. I don't know. Anyway, I've said that twice in the show. Here we go. Give it a go. Okay. 30 seconds or so. I was theorising earlier that people think that maybe it makes taste better because you're actually paying attention to something. It's a bit like when you go to a herbalist or something and they pay a lot more attention to you than a GP might, so they enjoy the experience more. So have a go at that.
It tastes pretty much the same. I don't know that it works on beer.
Perhaps it doesn't work on beer. That could be their get out of jail free card for it. Okay, well I'll try it elsewhere. But good luck with it and good taste in beer. Thank you. I didn't make it worse, did I?
No, it tastes just the same.
Okay, good. Of course, I'd like to point out that Richard is dressed like a professor.
We're recording a little segment for my podcast, the Skeptical Podcast, and this is the card I was just mentioning. This card was being sold not long ago, some years ago, for $120, or in that vicinity, and the claim is if you rub this on your wine, it will improve its taste. Is any takers to give it a test?
Yeah.
Here we go. You want two? Here we go. Here's a nice glass of wine, so
he's going to try on a glass of red.
Right, glass of red, and there's the perforation, so we rub it like this, and I believe it said for 15 seconds, but... All right, who would like to try that? It's your wine.
Okay, now give it a go.
Anyone else should. Because you're going to do it before and after anyway.
I've had it before. Hey, it's turned into a Cab Sav, and that was a Pinot Noir. I've been done.
This
It was a Pinot Noir, and it's now a Cab Sav.
a miracle.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Enjoy the night. I'll be back later on for some spoon bending, all right?
Wow. There you go. Well, there you go. Well, you got to have a big glass of shut up juice then, haven't you, Richard, after that? It worked.
She would love to see it. All right, so we've got we've got a beer this time.
Okay, right. Now, what beer have we got in here, sir?
Okay, so that's a Furphy.
Right. Okay. I love it.
All
One of my
right, here
favourite
we go.
brands.
We're rubbing the card on the beer.
Beer rubbing.
It's a new Olympic sport, I think.
Yeah.
There we go.
How's it go, sir?
Taste
Have
the
a go.
wine now.
Is it wine now?
Fortunately, it didn't taste different.
Oh, well.
Oh, well. You get your money back. That's all right.
Well, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your beer there. Okay.
Can you turn water into wine?
Well, that's right. Well, water into wine.
Well, now, have you had some of that water already, sir? So you know, okay, rightio. We'll have the go. We try. Now, is it supposed to work with water, Richard?
Yes, it works with water. That's the claim. Anyway.
Turns water into wine, does it?
Well, it might taste like it's got a slice of lemon in it. Give it a go, sir.
Now, I've energized the water. Let's see.
Have you? Doesn't look very energetic. Maybe it needs some more. We need more energy.
Try that.
Smells all right. I would be very hard pressed to detect the difference. I'm afraid.
We'll chalk that up as a
Well,
draw.
thank you. Yeah, well, yes, it's a draw then. Thank you. Well, you failed again, Richard. You're not doing too well here.
I think I'll have to put this wine card back in the cupboard, Maynard.
I think you should. Well, at least maybe it's not a wine card like, you can buy drinks for people. It's not like a credit wine card, is it?
I wish it was. It would be more useful, I think.
Oh. And are they still available?
No, well, the website's gone. I don't think they're a thing anymore.
Now, did they have one that did something like that except it helped you not get a hangover? Was there anything like that at any stage?
No, but there should be.
Yeah, okay. Oh, well. Well, it's all about scams tonight. Richard, you been scammed lately?
I'm scammed every day, mate.
I'm a psychic. My name is Psychic Carrie.
I'm Ross.
Oh, what a pleasure to meet you. Of course, I knew your name was Ross, as I am a psychic. But please, take a seat.
Well, I was hoping we
Hoping
could talk
that
about my
your
podcast.
podcast. Yes, I know.
It's called Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
Yes.
We investigate fringe science, spirituality, and claims of the paranormal. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yes. This whole podcast, it sounds like it's been a real challenge for you lately.
Actually, it's a lot of fun.
Yes, exactly. Because it's so fun.
I don't know how you do it.
This will be $75.
Okay, that seems fair.
Oh No, Ross and Carrie.
At MaximumFun.org.
.org.
You knew it was a .org.
I have a gift.
Now it's time once again to head back to the archives at Trove, at trove.nla.gov.au, the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia. Fully searchable, digitised bits and pieces, newspapers, magazines, periodicals and so forth in Australian history. And this week, with a general search for the paranormal and the supernatural, I came across this story published on the 27th of May, 1936, in the World's News, which was from Sydney, Australia. Crime and the supernatural. And this appears to be in the form of a book review. Here is a story about a story. There is plenty of, quote, red meat, end quote, in it. Sometimes a little too red and a little too raw. There is also a lot of blood and a good deal of thunder. It has nothing to do with fiction. It is fact, a curious chronicle. And this is a story by G. McDonough. The science of psychometry, if it is science, means little to the average mortal at the moment. In the near future, however, it seems likely that it may mean a great deal more. What is psychometry? Technically speaking, it is a psychic association of ideas. Like divining, it is a little-known power which few people possess and none understand. It may be used for many purposes. For example, a murderer's knife is placed in the hands of a psychometrist. The latter concentrates on it and falls into a trance. In this condition, he may reconstruct in startling detail the crime that has been committed. That would be psychometry. Rather far-fetched, is it not? But wait. Psychometry actually helped to solve the worst series of murders ever committed on English soil. Everyone has heard of Jack the Ripper. In 1888, the report of his crimes sent a thrill of horror throughout Europe. They were the murders of a maniac, committed with a maniacal ferocity and cunning. The extent of his cunning may be gauged from the fact that he once broke through a cordon of 12,000 police, slacked his bloodlust on the body of a chance victim, and made good his escape. A startling chain of circumstances resulted in Jack the Ripper's capture. But the details of this have never been made known to date. Neither has his identity. In the minds of the public, Jack the Ripper has always remained a monster and a mystery. Now, for the first time, the facts of probably the strangest case in the strange annals of modern crime are revealed to the public. A late member of New Scotland Yard is the authority. Here is the story, and here are the facts. Ooh, well, I can't wait for this. At a very early age, Robert James Lees, an Englishman, displayed extraordinary mental powers. In another century, he would have probably been burnt at the stake for his talents. But in 1888, people just shook their heads and dismissed Mr. Lees as queer. Now, break in here very briefly to say, of course, this is queer in the older sense of the word, meaning strange or unusual. Seriously, we cannot blame them for this, for Mr. Lees could see things that were hidden from the ordinary eyes of men. For example, in the year 1888, at approximately noon, on the day following Bank Holiday, Robert Lees was seated in his study. A sudden feeling of infinite fatigue came over him, and he lapsed into a trance. In this condition, a vision arose before his eyes, the vision of a man and a woman walking down the length of a main street. Judging by their gait, the woman seemed to be drunk, but the man seemed perfectly sober. Presently, they turned into a dark place, and, still in his condition of trance, Robert Lees dimly discerned the name. It read, The George Yard Buildings. He could also see the clothing of the man. He was dressed in a light Scotch tweed and a black felt hat, pulled down well over his eyes, and a light coat over one arm. It was now, by the dim rays of a gas lamp, that Robert Lees saw the fiendish crime committed. The man placed a hand over her mouth, and, withdrawing a knife from his pocket with chill determination, cut his victim's throat. The blood streamed over his clothes and dress front, but it did not seem to trouble the murderer. He kept his hand over his victim's mouth until she sank slowly to the ground. He then stooped down and, in a scientific manner, commenced to mutilate the prostrate body in a shocking fashion. Having completed his operation, he calmly proceeded to wipe the blood off the knife onto the skirt of the murdered woman. Sounding a bit grisly, isn't it? He then slipped on the light coat he was carrying, buttoned up the collar so as to hide traces of the blood on his own person. Then, stooping swiftly, he dragged his victim into the darkness of an open doorway. At this point, the vision ended. Horrified at what he'd seen, Robert Lees reported the whole thing in detail to Scotland Yard. The latter were polite, but incredulous. More to please Lees than anything else, the officer on duty made a note of the time and the place of the murderous attack, as foretold in the vision, and there the matter was allowed to rest. But when the inquest revealed that Robert Lees had actually forecast the whole fatality in his vision, accurately to the point of time and place, something of a stir resulted in official circles. Yet even then the police did not trouble to get in touch with Lees. The latter, on learning the terrible truth of his vision, had a nervous breakdown and was ordered abroad by his physician. Here Robert Lees was no longer troubled, but on his return to England he experienced a revival of the strange sensations that led to his first tragic vision. The visions eventually became so vigorous and terrible that Robert Lees went to the police. By this time, a wave of horror had swept over London. It materially altered the official point of view. In any case, the police were powerless. They determined to give the man possessed of such curious vision a chance. At the best, they hoped for a clue. They were in no way prepared for what followed. Unknown to the public, Robert Lees was led to the scene of Jack the Ripper's last butchery, and there the shocking atrocity was reenacted before Robert Lees' psychic eyes. Presently he arose and, with eyes staring into vacancy, moved off rapidly. He had picked up the psychic trail. Unhesitatingly, he walked mile after mile, followed impatiently by a number of very dubious officials. When he stopped outside the residence of a famous physician in the West End of London, their cynicism was complete. But it did not endure. Robert Lees was so persistent and described the interior of the house in such detail that they were persuaded to take a chance. It was a long chance, but it led to the capture of the most vicious murderer in the annals of English crime. This is interesting. Is this like one of those TV shows or movies where they sort of do things in an alternate universe? Lengthy questioning of the doctor's wife revealed that her husband, one of London's most famous physicians, was the maniacal monster who had terrified Whitechapel. Dramatic proceedings followed. Unknown to the general public, a court of medical men certified Jack the Ripper as insane. It must have been a grim, ironic business. A select group of distinguished doctors testifying to the homicidal tendencies of an equally distinguished confrere. Robert Lees and everyone else connected with the case, doctors, police, and officials, were sworn to secrecy. The medical murderer, who was normally the kindest and gentlest of individuals, was committed swiftly to a private asylum, and there the history of the horrors ends. To account for the disappearance of the degenerate doctor, it was announced that he had died suddenly, and today, in a London cemetery, reposes an empty coffin, said to contain the remains of the famous West End physician whose death at an early age was mourned by London and the medical world. And Robert Lees, who had more than once been received at Balmoral and Buckingham Palace, received a pension from the Privy Purse as a mark of royal patronage. Psychometry has played an amazing part in the solution of some amazing crimes. The above is one instance of it. There were many others. For those who are inclined to doubt the possibility of such strange occurrences, the following case may be of interest. It occurred in 1888, and the date is important, for at the time spiritualistic phenomena were little dreamt of, and séance was a word that was scarcely known. In the year 1888, John Fox, his wife and children, moved into a small cottage in Hydesville. A few days in that house were enough to reduce the whole family to near nervous and physical wrecks. They were assailed by fear and overwhelmed by a nameless terror. For every evening when darkness fell, the whole place resounded to a veritable crescendo of knocks, raps, and taps. The women were terrified into leaving the house. Eventually, the house of John Fox attracted the attention of the whole neighborhood by rapping in reply. They found it was possible to carry on a sort of a conversation with these strange and mystifying sounds. The voice that made itself vocal through these raps and knocks told the large number of people who had assembled that the body of a peddler was buried in the cellar of the cottage. And so it was proved. The crime of the murdered peddler constitutes the first psychic crime of importance to be solved by supernatural methods in modern times. Much more recent and even more remarkable is the work of a young American girl, Jean Dennis, who cheerfully admits that she is an enigma. And apparently, Ms. Dennis said, "How I can see and feel things others do not seem to sense is something I cannot fathom," declared Miss Dennis recently. She went on to say, "I've had the ability since I was 3 or 4 years old. I cannot tell you how I do seemingly impossible things, but just one thing I can tell you," Miss Dennis declared with the faintest trace of an American accent. She said, "My gift is nothing supernatural. It's just supernormal." Miss Dennis, who is dark-haired, young, and unusually beautiful, has had an amazing career. At 14, Dr. David Abbott, an American university psychologist, offered to expose Jean Dennis in 15 minutes. But after examining her closely for a period of 4 weeks, his verdict completely vindicated her powers. "Jean," exclaimed Dr. Abbott, "you have a God-given ability." Since then, Miss Dennis has provided police with a leading clue in the Bright-on-Trunk murders. She has also told Mr. Einstein details of his work which, he admitted, others could not possibly understand. What is the source and explanation of such strange powers? Perhaps Miss Dennis affords us a clue when she states that her gifts are not so much supernatural as supernormal. Edwin T. Woodhall, the author of these amazing disclosures, gets a little closer when he suggests that such psychic phenomena may be the product of a purely natural force that is not yet understood. At the same time, he issues a warning. Natural or unnatural, it is a powerful force, a force not to be tampered with, for the simple reason it may well destroy those who do not know its true strength. The author of this unique study in a little-known field is a man who has been accustomed to judge things by the weight of evidence. As a member of New Scotland Yard, the Secret Service, and the Intelligence Bureau, he has been trained not to exaggerate. And his treatment of the matter in crime and the supernatural does not belie his training. He says, "The new will always be assailed, persecuted, and mocked. It is unlikely that you will get a laugh at this book, but if you must laugh, make quite sure that you are not laughing in the same key as those who, 30 years ago, ridiculed the idea of flying through the air in a steel chariot, or listening to a voice 1,000 miles away. Today's doubts may be tomorrow's certainties. All lies in the womb of time. Well, there you go. The crimes of Jack the Ripper seem to have been solved and published about in 1936. How about that? Again, maybe we're looking at a newspaper from an alternative universe. Some of this reminds me of Hyman's maxim, which, to jog your memory, goes along the lines of don't try to explain something until you are sure there is something to be explained. So, reports and hearsay and this happened being reported as fact is not really the way to go. But what is the way to go is to go to Trove, trove.nla.gov.au, type in your search criteria, because you never know. You never know what you might find.
Hallo an alle Zuhörer aus Deutschland und natürlich alle Zuhörer aus aller Welt, die Deutsch sprechen. Obwohl dieser Podcast Englisch ist, hoffe ich, dass ihr trotzdem Freude daran habt, die Interviews und Meldungen anzuhören. Ihr könnt mehr über diesen Podcast auf www.skepticzone.tv erfahren.
Hello again, fellow skeptics. Nate Eggins here, aka Conspiracy of One. I've been hard at work on my very first album, Road to Reason, and I'd love to share one of the songs with you. The song They Don't Want You to Hear is a cheeky look at the shadowy forces behind grand conspiracy narratives and features the voice of another familiar musical skeptic, George Raab. The full album will be released during National Science Week in August, so please enjoy this small taste and I'll see you again soon.
We wear the crown, we control the earth till the day you die, from the day of your birth, and yet we never quite got around to coming out. You only do what we allow, except by explore, try every door, think for yourself and more. Ignore that, swear to us you're bound. There's no stopping us now. Here up in the clouds, we're gonna take the planes, we're gonna spray for days the chemical to sway your brain, or maybe mess with your DNA, or maybe bring the population down. But never mind the fact that 30,000 feet is too high to matter with an airborne gas when you're targeting the ground. There's no stopping us now. There's no stopping us now.
There is nothing you can say or do. Your resistance is useless. Without within will always win. Unless somebody figures out our plan by deciphering the clues we leave everywhere in rambles on the internet, then we're really in trouble.
The world is brown, but only from above. If you spy from the side, then you'll see a line. But we work hard to stop you finding out. We've settled on the how, undecided on the why. This fact won't likely affect your life, but we need a win so we can stand proud. There's no stopping us now. There's no stopping us now. This time we really mean it. We're gonna rule the world. There's no stopping us now. there's no stopping us.
Anything's a conspiracy if you look hard enough. Maybe you should just go and enjoy your life.
P.S. You can find me and more of my skeptical music at conspiracyofonesolo.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. On next week's episode, Maynard continues more interviews at Skeptics in the Pub, including an interview with Annie McCubbin herself, who was our guest speaker. And as I said, she drew a huge crowd. It was a lot of fun. Also, I interview author Daniel Simons, who, with Christopher Chabris, has written a new book called Nobody's Fool: Why We Get Taken In and What We Can Do About It. It's all about cons and tricks and scams and what to look out for. A fascinating book. I was very lucky to get an advanced copy, and I'll be speaking to Daniel Simons about the book in next week's episode. Thank you to those people who continue to support the Skeptic Zone at skepticzone.tv via PayPal or Patreon. Your contributions are very welcome indeed. Thank you to those people who've inquired as to my earrings, my origami earrings, made out of all sorts of interesting paper, including banknotes. I'm going to be looking into putting together some sort of online store, I think, in the near future. I'm not sure. I'm in the process of making stock, folding like crazy when I'm not doing skeptical investigations. But for this week, with all that having been said, and thank you, Nate Eggins, for sending me that wonderful song too, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.